Hello, Suzanne from Suzanne Scarrow Live. How's your day been? So I wanted to speak to you today about guilt. Well, guilt and shame, really. I consider guilt to be that thing that you feel when you've done wrong to somebody and you feel bad about it. And it's something that you can actually apologise for and make amends for. Shame, on the other hand, is when you feel like there is something wrong with you. It's not that you've done something wrong, it's that you are something wrong. Now, the guilt we can deal with, and we'll do some practice on that in a minute, but the shame is something that you may want to work with a skilled practitioner with, because that requires finding the source of where you started to feel that shame. So let's think about guilt for now, because that's something that you can clear yourself. And I want to give you the skills to be able to do that right here, right now. So think about something that you have felt guilty about. Now, if that thing was a movie, I want you to take a frame out of the movie that's about 30 seconds long, and I want you to give that frame a name. And it's important to say it in the most negative way you can. And then give it a score out of 10, where 10's the worst. If you need to stop the recording to get that done, go ahead and do that. But essentially, it's the guilt that you feel, the event that you feel the guilt about. If it was a movie, take a frame out of the movie and then let that frame be about 30 seconds long, because the more specific we are when we're using tapping or emotional freedom techniques, the better result that we get. So once you've got your 30-second piece and you've given it a name in the most negative way you can say it, and then you've given it a score out of 10, I want you to do this. So tap on the karate chop. Now I'm just going to use the general word guilt, but you insert your words. Say these words out loud. Even though I feel this guilt, I choose to accept myself anyway. Even though I feel this guilt, I choose to accept myself anyway. One more time. Even though I feel this guilt, I choose to accept myself anyway. Then on the crown, all this guilt, but insert your words. Eyebrow, all this guilt. Outside corner of the eye, all this guilt. Under eye, all this guilt. Under nose, all this guilt. Under lip, all this guilt. Collarbone, all this guilt. Underarm, all this guilt. On the wrist, all this guilt. Karate, all this guilt. And crown, all this guilt. And take a big breath now and just see how it feels. If you started off at perhaps a 10 out of 10, what you should find is that it's come down to maybe an 8 or so. And just keep doing those rounds of tapping. So the more specific you are, the better the result that you'll get. The more you say it in the most negative way you can, the better result you'll get. So just keep doing those rounds of tapping, and what you should find is that you can get that guilt down to 0, because there's no point in carrying that guilt around. Once you've figured out that you feel guilty about something, you've apologised for it and made amends for it, don't carry the guilt around with yourself and beat yourself up with it, because it doesn't serve the person that you've wronged, and it certainly doesn't serve you, and you can be free of it. That's the thing about these emotions. When you take the lesson and leave the emotion behind, that's when you can move on with your life. So do another round of tapping. Let's just do another one now. On the karate chop, even though I feel, and your words, all this guilt, I choose to accept myself anyway. Even though I feel all this guilt, I choose to accept myself anyway. Even though I feel all this guilt, I choose to accept myself anyway. Then on the crown, all this guilt, eyebrow, all this guilt, side of eye, all this guilt, under eye, all this guilt, under nose, all this guilt, under lip, all this guilt, collarbone, all this guilt, underarm, all this guilt, on the wrist, all this guilt, karate, all this guilt, and crown, all this guilt. A big breath and see how it feels now. Just look back at your 30-second frame to test it, And what you should notice is that it comes down, down, down. Now, you may need to do a few more rounds to get it all the way down. You may not even get it there in one sitting. You might need to come back to it tomorrow, but you can clear that emotion. And I recommend that you do, because you do not want to punish yourself by carrying it around. Okay, so remember, if it's shame, if it's a feeling that there's something wrong with you rather than something that you've done that's wrong, then you may need to seek out a skilled practitioner just to help you find the source of that. But you can be free of that too. So be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you again soon.